Film and Whiskey Nation, do you ever think about awards? Of course you do. You drink whiskey and watch movies, which means that you know that nothing is validated until a group of random people say, hey, we love what you're doing. The awesome thing about Doc Swinson's whiskey is that it isn't just some group of schlubs that are giving them awards. They have been winning attention from some of the most important whiskey experts that you can imagine. They've been voted best distillery in Washington State by the New York International Spirits Competition. They've been voted the best independent bottler by the Ascot Awards, as well as the best finished bourbon from the Ascot Awards for their La Menta Exploratory Cask. Their Exploratory Cask series is where they release some of the most fascinating and adventurous experiments. If you're ever checking out Doc's lineup and see a white label, there's a really good chance that that's the only time you'll see that bottle, so make sure you snatch it up. Doc Swinson's has been offering just phenomenal finished and blended whiskeys for quite some time now. You can find them online at docswhiskey.com. That's DOCS whiskey.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book, and I am flying solo today on another special bonus episode that Brad is not here for. Unfortunately, at the time of night that we're recording this, we couldn't get Brad to sit down with us, but it's his loss because I'm sitting down with somebody tonight that I have been wanting to get on this show for a couple years now. Way back in like season 1 or season 2 of the podcast, we received some samples in the mail from this up-and-coming distillery in Tennessee called Old Dominick. We tried their Huling Station bourbon, and we tried their Memphis Toddy cordial, and they were both so freaking good that I immediately reached back out and said, do you have anything else you can send us? And, you know, we got a wheat whiskey after that, and so we've been following Old Dominick really closely for a while now, and they have some big announcements and some big things that are coming down the pike now, and so we are lucky enough to be sitting down with master distiller Alex Castle. Alex, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I don't think I realized that you guys have been following us and tasting our stuff for so long. That is absolutely fantastic.
It's one of those things, you know, I don't know if you have this with like celebrities or like people who you look up to in your own circles, but we have a few people on Instagram that I've been following like since the beginning of the podcast, and whether they know it or not, they were like in my first 100 follows on Instagram, and I think you were one of those. And so I'm just like, every time I get on Instagram, like your pictures pop up early in the feed, and so I'm just like, I know what's going on with Alex. One of these days we're gonna sit down and talk, because that's my people right there.
I love it.
All right, let's go ahead and just jump right in here. You're sitting down with us tonight because the distillery has a pretty big announcement, and that is that you are finally releasing your own distillate, and it's called a straight Tennessee whiskey. I cannot wait to talk more about this, but can you give us some background? And I guess I've kind of stolen your thunder with this announcement a little bit, but I'll let you wheel it out from here on out.
Yeah. So, the whole concept of Old Dominick started back in 2013, 2014, but we didn't get to start our actual whiskey production until December 2016, filled our first barrels in February of 2017. So we've been waiting very patiently for our whiskey to come of age, so to speak. And I made my owners very aware that I wasn't going to dump any barrels until they were at least 4 years old. So they've been sitting on their hands for that amount of time. It's easier said than done. And then the pandemic and other things kind of stretched it out. So we ended up waiting until year 5, basically, or I guess 5.5. And those first barrels were our Tennessee whiskey. This is the first whiskey to be start to finish, so grain to bottle, produced, distilled, aged, everything in Memphis since at least Prohibition. So it's a huge milestone, not just for Old Dominick, but also for Memphis. And we're so excited to be able to add to the growing Tennessee whiskey category, because it's not a very big one at all. And ours is a mash bill of 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. So you're going to get some really great sweet notes from the corn, but there's just enough rye to kind of offset it a little bit, and you do get some rye spice. So if you are a rye drinker you should like this, but also if rye scares you a little bit, this should still be approachable. Shouldn't be too in your face rye. And we actually did 2 releases. We have our, as you called it, the straight Tennessee whiskey. That is our kind of our everyday drinker. You're going to be able to find it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 85 proof. So I know that sounds kind of like a low proof, especially right now. Everyone wants cask strength.
Sure.
But we found through months of taste tests that the 85 proof is where this whiskey it sang. And I think why it sings at that proof is because we go into the barrel at 110 proof, so kind of low proof.
Mm-hmm.
But our wonderful Memphis humidity that most of us complain about all year actually is amazing for whiskey. And so our barrels are coming out between 115 and 120 proof. So we're gaining in those 4 to 5 years, we're gaining a lot of alcohol content. So it's giving some amazing body and depth to these barrels so that even when you proof all the way down to 85, it still has so much character and so much flavor. But at that lower proof, it's still very, very approachable and easy to sip.
That's
and
so exciting. I'm
is.
sorry to interrupt you. Please keep going. No. I'm just over here like giddy about trying this.
So the other product we released, it's also Tennessee whiskey. And it's a very exciting one for us. Not a lot of distilleries get to release bottled and bond products. There's a whole list of things you have to check off to be able to put that on your bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we're able to put that on the bottle with our first release is incredibly exciting. So Bottle and Bond is a federally regulated designation for whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And it was created to help the consumer know that you were getting good whiskey. Way back in the day, people were putting a bunch of junk in their whiskeys to kind of, I guess, extend their volume.
Mm-hmm.
But if it said Bottle and Bond, you knew you were getting quality product. And that meant you were getting whiskey from a single distillery in a single production season.
Mm-hmm.
And we define that January to June, July to December. And it was produced by one distiller, aged for at least 4 years, and it's bottled at 100 proof.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to check all those boxes to be able to put this on your bottle. And we can do that. And so we released 2 batches of Bottle and Bond from 2 different production seasons. They're about a year apart. So radically different ages and radically different profiles, both phenomenal, but so much fun to put out there.
So I want to talk a little bit about the differences between these new products and your Huling Station line, because I mean, that's what made me fall in love with the distillery. And, and you guys are very transparent about the fact that that was a sourced product. And I guess what I'm wondering at this point is, when you get brought on as master distiller and the product that you're selling at that point is sourced product, but you guys are making a name for yourselves as a producer and as a distillery that is like starting to distill. Does it increase your anxiety level any that what you're starting to become known for is something that somebody else made? And there's like, I don't know, what's it like to walk that line between I want to be consistent to what people have come to know us for, but I also got hired because they trust my palate and I might want to go in a different direction with this?
There is definitely some anxiety and nerves associated with it. First, I'm incredibly proud of the Huling Station line. It wasn't just contract or sourced whiskey, it was contract distilled. So that is actually still our proprietary mash bills, our yeast, our barrels. So it's still very much what we wanted. And NGP does an amazing job. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're never going to complain about anything that comes out of that distillery.
Right.
And so I love that product. I've been able to, in my own way, make it my own. But I was super excited to be able to come to Tennessee and start making my own whiskey. And knowing the reputation that Huling has now, releasing our whiskey, our Tennessee on November 1st was terrifying because it's so much younger. It's radically different. The mash bills couldn't be farther apart from each other. I absolutely was worried that people would just automatically want to compare it to Huling.
Sure.
And that they wouldn't necessarily hold up because of how different they are. Fortunately, that hasn't been the situation so far. Of course, the whiskey's only been out for, I don't know, about 2.5 weeks. So we'll see what happens in 6 months. But it's a balancing act, and it's definitely a nerve-wracking game of going from a sourced product or a contract distilled product to your very own.
Yeah, but at the same time, I really respect the decision on the part of Old Dominick to not release this new product as Huling Station. Like, to respect what Huling Station is and was. And like you said, different mash bill, so it would be wildly different to pick up a bottle of Huling now. But I really like that it's almost like, I don't want to call it closing a chapter, but, you know, this is what you guys were known for. And now this new thing is going to be what you're known for. And it may be a different mash bill, but it still very much has the character and the spirit of what Old Dominick has come to represent.
That's good to hear. Yeah, we wanted them to really have their own, basically, brand identities. So when Huling first came out, there actually was Old Dominick on the label. And if you look at a bottle now, Old Dominick is no longer on the front label. And we did that in preparation for this whiskey release. We wanted consumers to be able to kind of separate them, you know, hopefully still maybe connect the dots a little bit, know that we're putting out both, but to also signify, don't compare them. Don't assume one is like the other. We want them to be their own completely unique products.
All right, I'm gonna put us on a timer here because I've got a ton of stuff to get through on the movies front. But before we segue into that, I want you really quickly to tell a story that I was reading in my research for you about the time where you were working at Alltech, or Town Branch as it's come to be known now, the distillery portion of Alltech, when you were either in college or just after college, I believe, and you got put in charge of distilling with about 5-minute crash course to prepare you for it. So can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took a co-op, basically a paid internship at Alltech in Lexington, Kentucky, in college because they had a small brewery. It's called Kentucky Ale, not knowing they were actually adding a distillery to it at the time. And so about 3 months into it, they added the pot stills. My boss knew my interest in it. And so a couple weeks in after they've commissioned the stills, he asked me if I want to observe a distillation. I said, absolutely. Get out of the office. Let's do this. So I meet him at the brewery distillery and get there. And the first thing he says to me is, I am so sorry. I forgot I have to take the boys to the dentist. So I have to go. So I immediately deflate thinking, oh, crap, now I have to go back to the office. Wonderful. And instead, and this is so typical of my boss at the time, this is how he worked. Instead of just sending me back to the office, he ran through the entire process in about 5 minutes, said, you're good to go. If there's a problem, by all means, turn them off. But here you go. And then he left. And so on that day when I was supposed to be observing, actually ran my first whiskey distillation. I don't think I stopped smiling one time that entire day. As terrified as I was thrilled. And from that day forward, I ended up filling the first 100 or so barrels of what would become Pierce Lyons Reserve whiskey and set up their SOPs and everything that they used for years.
Wow.
So yeah, that's where I learned I didn't want to make beer. I wanted to make whiskey.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I lived just outside of Lexington for a few years, and they were really the only player around in Lexington at the time.
They were, absolutely.
And people always ask me, like, where should I start? I'm going to go to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Where should I start? And people are always surprised when I tell them that, like, one of the first ones I'd recommend if you're just starting out on the trail is the Alltech tour, because it's such a great kind of entry point into, they have a variety of different kinds of whiskeys. There's a bourbon, a rye, an Irish whiskey. But the way the tour works is they give you these tokens and you can cash the tokens in for whatever you want. And that includes all of their beer. So if you want to do a mix of beer and whiskey, it's such a great little tour. And I was just so excited to see that you got your start with Alltech, because it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That tour is wonderful because you can get beer and whiskey. And I love it because that distillery did not look anything like that when I worked there, but it's absolutely beautiful. In those pot stills, they do the traditional, pot stills from Forsyth's.
Mm-hmm.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Now, I say all those nice things so that I can now say this. I've been thinking about this story for the last couple hours and trying to find, how do I want to spin this? Because it sounds like a really heartwarming story and a great leadership example, right? Like, hey, give the little guy a chance, because you never know who might go on to become, master distiller at Old Dominick, right? So give her a chance. But then I think, that was wildly irresponsible to just put the co-op person in charge of a whole day's worth of distillation. I now that you're in that position, would you have done that? If someone came to you and said, hey, I want to learn, and you were like, all right, here's 5-minute crash course and you're good to go. It blows my mind. I'm so glad for his sake or her sake, whoever your boss was, that you turned out to be a natural at it, because that could have gone horribly wrong.
So my boss is Mark Kaufman, who is now the master distiller at Town Branch.
Okay.
And he always, from day one, was a throw you in the deep end, see if you can sink or swim kind of person, which most people were terrified of. I kind of loved it. But I think by that point, he had learned that I'm very by the book, very OCD. If you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it to a T.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew I was going to follow his instructions. But I should also say that shortly thereafter, they brought a distiller over from Scotland, and I spent 2 weeks with him, absorbing as much of his knowledge as I possibly could. So I wasn't doing it for too long before getting much more formal training.
Well, that's good to know. I actually probably would be even more impressed, though, if you came into this interview and said, no, that 5 minutes was the only training I've ever had. Look at where I am now.
Hey, you never know.
That's true. All right. Before we let you go today, we have developed, and I say developed, we have shamelessly stolen a set of questions that we've started asking our interview guests here. And it's based on the TV show Inside the Actors Studio.
Oh, man.
And so we're calling it Inside the Whiskey Studio. We've pared it down a little bit. I won't ask you what your favorite curse word is, because you're here as a representative of a company. But maybe if you want to tell me.
Anyone I work with would tell you what my favorite curse word is.
They know exactly what it is.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to just do this as rapid fire as possible, starting with this one. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Well, it might be the same as my favorite cuss word.
Now it's on top of your mind. Exactly.
I'm definitely a fan of the F-bomb. It gets used way too much in my day-to-day.
What's your least favorite word?
Oh, man. No. Although I like to say it, so that's probably not fair.
What sound or noise do you love?
The ocean.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Nails on a chalkboard.
What's a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt?
I always love the idea of directing.
Oh, nice. Well, you came to the right place. Who are your favorite fictional heroes?
Oh, man, fictional heroes. Let's see, probably Aragorn from Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter.
Who are your favorite characters in history?
Oh, man. Absolutely love Leonardo da Vinci and King Henry VIII.
Wow. Okay. Who is your favorite musician?
I'd probably have to go with either Adele or Ben Folds.
What's a natural gifting that you would most like to possess?
Oh, shoot. Most natural gifting?
The ability to not swear? Is that?
No, that's too much fun.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Swearing is way too much fun. I mean, I would love to be able to play a musical instrument. I have no rhythm whatsoever.
If you had a say in how you died, how would you prefer to go out?
Peacefully in my sleep. I don't even want to know what's happening.
All right. And finally, this is one that we've added. If you had to pair your new Old Dominick products with a fast food item, what would it be?
I feel like some fried chicken.
Oh, there you go.
Probably work really well.
All right, now you got it. You got to pick a restaurant though. Can't just be generic about it.
Well, I don't know if it qualifies as fast food, but Gus's Fried Chicken here in Memphis.
Oh, okay.
Best fried chicken.
All right. Well, shameless plug for Gus's Fried Chicken in Memphis. I love it. All right. Now, I said all that. We did the list first because I think we're going to tease your favorite movie, and then I'm going to guilt trip you into coming back on the show in the future to talk about your favorite movies. And the reason is because right before we pressed record, Alex told me what her 2 favorite movies were. And I knew that Brad, my co-host, would quit the show and never come back again if I talked to you about these without him here. So can you tease for the audience, what are the movies that we would be talking about?
Yeah, I'm split between the original Star Wars trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I just want to take a moment. Anyone who listens to this show knows, like, Brad has an obscene amount of love for the original Star Wars trilogy, and we're both huge fans of Lord of the Rings. So, like, I would not be doing justice to our dynamic as a podcasting duo if I talked to you about these right now. So, Alex, we would love to have you back on the show soon. Honestly, we'd love to do a tasting of these new products, maybe get you on, and we'll try a couple of these and dive into Lord of the Rings and your love for Aragorn. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. This has been Alex Castle, master distiller at one of our favorite distilleries, Old Dominick in Memphis, Tennessee. Alex, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, we will be back on Monday with another regularly scheduled episode. But until then, I'm Bob Book, and we'll see you next time.